shine. I stayed on my grind. Every bar's like a hook from Iron Mike in his prime. My eye lead a light speed is just blowing your mind, and you ain't got enough heart to try to challenge a line. I'm holding it down.
Yo, what is up, headhunters and executive recruiters? This is your boy, DSP, David Stephan Patterson, and welcome to day 3 of the 12 Days of Salesmas. Now, technically, I'm supposed to record these on different days. Probably tell I'm not doing that today. I just recorded day 2 a moment ago because I'm behind. So sue me. This is free value. So quit bitching. Anyway, with that said, let's dive into the lesson, shall we? So, and I will say this as well. If you haven't watched days 1 and days 2, go back and do so because this will not make sense. Okay. And also, as a reminder, for those of you who are saying, but David, I want the scripts, I want the one-liners. Come on, man. That's what I need. Look, scripts are like crack for recruiters, right? They got to get that fix of the scripts and one-liners that they probably won't ever use. Scripts and one-liners are great, and you'll get those later on. But right now, working on the foundational parts of this whole program. So it's important that we do this first, do it right, and that'll make your sales process and your scripts so much more effective. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about how to do a proper competitive analysis, or as I like to call it, tuning into your niche's signal. All right, so the last 2 days, we've really gone deep on the issue of pain. And hopefully at this point, I've really sold you on the idea on why you should be selling to pain. Now I want to expand this out a little bit into what we like to call the buyer's journey, or the prospect journey, or the customer journey. There's lots of different names for it. But I'm going to break that down a little bit and cover that really briefly. And from there, we're going to dive into how to do a proper competitive analysis, or competitor analysis rather. So when you look at a funnel, and I touched on this in day 1, you look at a funnel, you have awareness, right? And then below that, you have what we call discovery. And below that, you have conversion, okay? And of course, below that, you have a big fat dollar bill, right? Ideally. So what happens is awareness, right? When you're prospecting and you're going out there and trying to get an appointment, right? Because if you're out there prospecting, your goal really shouldn't be to get a job order, because you might get one. That's great, but let's work in baby steps, right? The first goal really is to find out if that person's in pain, and from there, if they're in pain, get an appointment and talk more about that and see if your solution may make sense, right? It doesn't make sense though to go and prospect and talk about your solution nonstop, because they don't care, or to go and talk about your authority or expertise in the business, because they don't care. Everybody out there is spouting those same lines. They're not effective. And if everybody is an expert, everybody is a specialist, everybody is blah, 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 right? Then no one cares, right? So we need to go and speak to their pain first, because that's what they care about, right? Once we do that and we get their attention, then they're going to care a little bit more. Say, okay, well, who is this person, right? Are they an authority? Back to the example I used in yesterday's lesson about fitness. If a suburban mom came in and she was looking for diet pills, right? She's using bad solutions over and over again, and she's looking at me thinking I'm probably going to have something similar. And I say, no, I'm going to make you do squats, deadlifts. We're going to eat a high-fat diet. We're going to, do all these other things that will work for you, but you're not really looking for that. Okay, so I've got to sell you into that. So I got to use my acute pains or your acute pains rather, to pivot you into this, right? And show you how painful using diet pills are, and the damage it could do to your body, et cetera, right? Now, if I'm going to do that, realize, am I messaging, right? If I'm trying to communicate this and sell my services, well, I can't go and lead with the fact that I'm an authority. I'm a registered, or I'm a certified CrossFit level 2 trainer and this and that, and I've got my dietitian's license. No one cares. There's tons of coaches out there that are certified. No one gives a shit. right? I've got to make them aware of that pain, show them those consequences. And once they're kind of hooked in, then they will care about my authority, right? And once they care about my authority and my process, I talk to them about my process, how that works, and show them some proof that what I do does work using testimonials, etc. Then I can talk about my solution, okay? And so when you break it down like that, and when you look at it visually, what you really have are three main components. Now, there is actually 9 overall steps in the buyer's journey that I teach my clients. Okay. And of course, there's a lot of nuance in there. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to really break it down to 3 main core components. Okay. Remember, I said awareness, discovery, and conversion, right? Pain and authority, value, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Process, etc. And then you're right in discovery, and a conversion is your solution, right? And their vision of what they can achieve for themselves if they were to solve all their problems, right? In the case of a woman looking to particularly use my services, is the vision of having the body of her dreams, right? Of being in better shape than she's ever been in her life, being healthy and just feeling good, or an amazing sex life with her husband, or whatever that may be, right? For us, right, our leaders' visions may be to blow their numbers out of the water, to consistently get promoted, be known as the person that can consistently field high-performing teams, right? To eventually become a CEO or a CIO or a CFO or whatever it is, right? To accomplish whatever they want to accomplish in their lives and their careers, and that comes from their ability to hire. Okay, so ultimately, when you think about it, we're selling transformation in a lot of ways. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Let's move back to the 3 main components, right? So again, these 3 main components, right? The pain. Now, think about it like this. Think about the niche, right? The psychology of that niche and the false beliefs that they have, right? Let's call that niche, right? Right. So the niche isn't just the fact that you recruit finance in Cleveland. No, the understanding of your niche is really understanding the pains and the false beliefs they have. Okay. Yeah. And there's false beliefs that are keeping them in bad solutions. And then on the other hand, right, and we're going to work on this later. So, if you haven't done this yet, that's okay. We're going to have a lesson on this, is your offer, your service. Not a commodity service like what everybody else offers, which is an ass in a seat. I'm talking about a real premium service built from this commodity, right, of putting asses in seats. How do you make that into a premium service without resorting to empty platitudes? Bob, when you work with us, we really go in and dig into your company's culture. Well, everybody can say that. That doesn't make an offer, okay? You want to productize your services. And again, we'll talk more about that, but I want you to kind of conceptualize, right? You've got this niche with this pain, and then you've got this offer over here that solves this pain in a really unique way, okay, that no one else is doing, okay? Remember that what no one else is doing is key, right? We're going to come back to that. So that's 2 components right there. Think about this: awareness, right? Pain. Conversion over here, offer, okay? And then the other component is in that middle, discovery. It's the messaging. The messaging is what communicates this offer to this niche. And really, in any business, there's 3 main components. Now, granted, there are 9 total steps in the buyer's journey, but again, for simplicity, we're going to throw out we're going to throw out some nuance, right? But for this case, for simplicity, we have niche, message, offer. And when we think about it, every single business that sells a premium or higher quality product has those 3 components. Now, for a lot of recruiters, they offer a commodity service. They're really more like resume brokers than anything else. So, there's really no offer to speak of, right? And again, for a lot of recruiters, they really don't understand their niche very well. Right? They don't understand how to sell to those pains and problems, etc. And they don't really have an offer to speak of. It's all commodity based. And so the messaging is going to suck, right? Because the messaging is, again, spouting off their pitch about their specialists, and they've got user experience in business and yada, 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 yada. So they don't have any of those 3. And so what do? They hustle for deals, right? And you're just hustling candidates to get them at the right time in the job order, et cetera, or placing a job posting and hoping your candidate, your star candidate will apply before they apply to the client's own posting on the same job site, as well as the 3 other recruiters' own job postings on there, so you can get them in quick and tag them and as your candidate for anybody else can. Okay. Now, for those of you watching this, say, I would never do that. Be honest. I guarantee you that most of the recruiters watching this have done that or have thought that. It just is what it is. Okay. Not your fault. It's just you're in a broker sort of situation. Okay. Which is what we're trying to break you out of. So again, niche, message, offer. Those are the 3 main components for any successful premium business. Okay. Any business has to have a really fine understanding of the psychology of the niche. They have to have this offer that no one else has, and they've got to have messaging that's unique, intriguing, that grabs their prospects by the what's, right, and gets them to pay attention. Okay, so now when you look at these 3 components, right, there's 3 things. Before, we've already worked on your niche, right, the psychology. Now you're like, oh, it's awesome. Now I want to create this offer and this messaging. This is going to be sick, David. So next week we're doing the script, right? No, hang tight. There's a few more steps to get there before we do that. Before we get into the offer creation and messaging and the scripts and all that kind of jazz, we need to do a proper competitive analysis, because here's the other consideration to think about, right? Your ideal clients are in pain. They may not even know they're in the pain that they're in, right? Oftentimes they're not really aware of it. And part of our job is to bring awareness to that, okay? And get them clear on it. But at the end of the day, we also have to realize that our prospects have a million other choices out there. Other recruiters are calling your prospects probably right now. And they're, no matter how good your script is, there's somebody out there with a better script, who sounds better, who has a deeper relationship, right? So we have to figure out, of course, who the audience is, which, we've been doing that in terms of our understanding of the psychology of your niche, but also, and obviously what's important to them. But we also have to look at the signal that they're hearing, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a signal that resonates, right? But we have to realize is that in the industry, in a red ocean, you have other competitors that are also blasting their signals. And so what happens is, for most recruiters, what we do is we don't look at other competitors, right? We try to create this unique thing that we think is awesome and super cool and no one else has it. Okay, well, actually, no, everybody has it. Everybody's doing it, but we kind of live in a bubble, right? Because, and I think part of it is because, it's kind of a self-protection mechanism. Recruiters, look, if I were to ask 100 people of you folks watching this, well, okay, this is actually probably a bad example, because the folks that are watching this are awesome. You guys are on the right path. So you guys are probably better than most. But if you were to ask 100 random recruiters to rate themselves as below average, average, above average, or even excellent, whatever, right? You'll get the vast majority or above average. But that cannot be mathematically, it can't mathematically be true. It's like every parent says their kid is above average. Is that really true? I mean, come on. Let's look at the numbers, right? Half are above, half are below. Which half are you in, right? So we have this sort of, we want to think of ourselves as better than we are. And, we don't, and while there's other competitors out there that are probably better than us, we don't want to take a look at them, because we don't want to face that fact, right? We don't. We just want to close that next deal. But it's important for us to, take those blinders off and really take a hard, deep look at your competitors, because those competitors out there are calling your prospects each and every day, multiple times, right? And you don't hear about it, because they're not going to go tell you, hey, I got 5 calls today, but it is happening. All right. And it's very likely that the client that you think you have a great relationship with, that you think they'll never pay retainers, just gave a retainer to another firm down the road. Right. It is what it is. Okay. So, and as soon as you screw up, or as soon as you slip on that banana peel and you mess up on a placement, or you don't fill a position fast enough, etc., there's a million other firms waiting in the wings ready to take your spot. Okay, so it's important for you to start doing a proper competitive analysis. Figure out who are you competing with, right? And it's not just the the recruiters that are calling your prospects. There's other forms of competitors out there, right? There's, for example, there is you've got job postings, right? You've got HR really is a competitor as well. You've got the manager's own Rolodex, right? All those things are different competitors. Right now, though, focus on the search firms you compete with. So go find out who are those people, who are you competing against, and what are the signals that they're blasting out to the market, right? Because what you have to do is you have to figure out your unique signal that's going to resonate with your market. It has to be different enough from what everybody else is offering. So it's important that you go then and do a competitive analysis and look at specifically two things: their message and their offer, right? Because you remember, niche message offer is basically the components of any successful business. You have to kind of dial them in, and you have to get this match, right? Well, so for you to do this, you got to figure out, okay, well, what are all the signals? What's all the white noise that your prospects are hearing? Because if you're just trying to blast your signal louder than everybody else, well, that's not really going to be very effective, okay? So you don't want to be out there shouting your message. You want to tune it in exactly. So what you want to do is you want to list out every single competitor you may compete against. If you don't know, start asking every single candidate, every single client, every single prospect. Always ask, who else to use? Specifically, who? Here's the thing. When's the last time you asked your prospect, who you cold called, or maybe your client, whoever it is, or candidate, hey, are you working with other recruiters, right? Or have you worked with other recruiters? And of course they have. Great. Who did you use? See how I pause there, right? Oftentimes you ask a question which may sound kind of awkward, a little forward. You pause and you just have an awkward silence there. They'll usually fill in the blank space, and they'll tell you who they use. Okay. For some reason, we don't like to do this, but this is really, really important. So find out exactly who they're using. Go on LinkedIn, look for other recruiters. I mean, obviously, it's really easy to search LinkedIn, right? But look for other recruiters that work in your niche, right? Even the specific recruiters themselves, not just a firm, right? You can have a firm with 10 different desks and 10 different specialties, right? A lot of MRI firms are like that. So go and figure out who you're competing against. Look at their LinkedIn, you do Google searches. You want to ask every single candidate, every single client. In fact, for the rest of your career, I want you to ask every single client, every single candidate that question. Do not stop, because you can have a new competitor come into your market 2 years from now that you never would have expected, and they can eat your lunch like that. All right. That's really important. And go list out every single competitor, right? And when you do that, then I want you to ask yourself these questions. Now, granted, you're going to look at these two things, right? Their offer and their niche. I'm not their niche, I'm sorry, their messaging. And so you want to go and watch every video they have, every podcast, download every lead magnet, every blog post. Does this sound like a lot of work? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Get to work. It's important, because if you don't do this, somebody else watching this video in your market will, and they'll read all your stuff and everybody and all the other competitors, and they will eat your lunch. So bottom line, now that you've seen this, you can't unsee it, which means now you know what you need to go do the work, right? And it's not easy, but it is important. In fact, I will say this as well before we get into the specifics on what to look at. The first time you do this is the hardest, for sure. The more you do it, the easier it gets. I would recommend at least every 6 months at a max, maybe even sooner, but every 6 months or maybe a year, but I'd rather do it 6 months. Do another competitive analysis. Keep a file for every competitor. And every 6 months, have your VA or have you go to whatever it is, but go and update the files, because the competitor that you did a competitive analysis on a year ago that you thought was not even a blip on the radar, they could watch this, they could join the accelerator, one of my programs, and they can eat your lunch within a few months. So it's important that you actually do this on a constant basis. Now, let's look at what to look for, okay? So ask yourselves these questions when you're looking at their offer. Try to find out, what are they charging? And again, some firms list it on their website. The good firms typically don't, but some do. Ask your clients, ask your prospects, why not? The worst they can do is say no. They don't want to tell you. Whatever, fine. But what are they charging? What's their guarantee? Refund, replacement. How long is the guarantee? Is it just a guarantee, or is it actually part of an actual offer? So for example, I've got a year-long guarantee. It's not just a year-long guarantee, replacement, by the way, not refund. But we have steps that we take in that guarantee period that actually help reduce turnover, right? And to help the prospect to actually be more, or we help them to hit the ground running more often, so they can actually hit their performance profiles. We'll talk more about that when we get into offer creation, but I want you to be thinking about that, right? Do they recruit retained? Is it contingency? Here's a little tip though. When you go to somebody's website and they have, here's what we do contingency, here's what we do retained. 9 times out of 10, if they list retained on their website, but they also work contingency, 9 times out of 10, they actually don't do retained. I can't tell you how many recruiters I've talked to that have entered into my program, and I'll look on their site and I'll say, well, okay, so it looks like you do retained. And they're like, oh, actually, I don't. I just have that there, right? It happens a lot. So don't just judge from the site. Ask your prospects. Ask anybody you can. Figure it out, right? You can figure this stuff out. Do they have a signature methodology, an offer? Again, we're going to be working on that ourselves as well, but ask about that. What is that, right? If somebody has a process listed on their website, 9 times out of 10, it's not really a signature methodology, even if they call it that, okay? Just calling your process proprietary does not, in fact, make it proprietary, okay? So you may have to do some digging here. What's their market share? How many recruiters are in there? Do they run teams? Are these all individual recruiters, solo desks? Or is there like a rainmaker, and underneath that rainmaker, you've got 3 or 4 recruiters and a couple of researchers, et cetera, right? Do they do that? What things do they offer within their service, right? Do they have company landing pages? Do they have email campaigns, right? How do they actually fulfill on those job orders, okay? And also get a sense of what are our clients relatively satisfied with what they offer. Look at the testimonials, right? Try to find out. And by the way, if someone puts a testimonial or recommends a recruiter on their LinkedIn profile, then go to that manager's, that hiring leader's page, and find out who else they recommended. Did they only recommend that one recruiter? Or are they recommending everybody, right? So try to find out, who else they're recommending, and then go research those people, right? So kind of gives you an idea of what you look at when you look at someone's service offering. Now, when you look at the message, right? How do they communicate, right? And that's a little bit different than the actual offer itself. How do they communicate? Well, do they have a blog? Are there white papers, lead magnets? Do they post videos? Do they have a YouTube channel? Do they have a podcast? Is there an email list that you would sign on to? Do they have a frequently asked questions site or section on their website? How active are they on LinkedIn? What's their sales process like? You may not be able to know these things. It's hard to really go and ask them specifically, hey, what's your sales process? But there are ways to find out. A lot of that is just being a good detective, all right? What channels are they selling through? Again, there's videos and podcasts, et cetera, but are there other social media channels as well? Are they heavy on Twitter? Are they heavy on Instagram or TikTok or, all those new fancy social media sites? Okay. But find out what that messaging is. And when you look at that messaging, ask yourself, are they talking to the pain? Are they talking to the problem? Right? Or is it the same standard lines that everybody else is using? And what you'll typically find, by the way, as you start comparing your service and theirs, you're going to typically find you'll find the majority of competitors are kind of, I'm not saying to the bottom, but they're kind of average, maybe a little bit below average. You're going to have some that are really shitty, but you're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 that are really good, maybe 1 or 2 really, really top quality ones. Take a look at them, right? And figure out And don't just compare yourself against the top ones. Don't just compare yourself against the low ones, right? Look at everybody, but think to yourself, how do I need to juxtapose what I do compared to what all those other average recruiters do, right? Your clients are hearing their messages over and over and over and over again, right? Like steady drumbeat, right? So figure out, how does my message need to be different, right? And in addition, and not just them, also those high level ones. What are their weaknesses? What are their strengths? How does your offering compare? If you even have one, point by point. What pains do they solve? What pains do they talk about? Are there gaps? Here's a big one. If you see gaps, and this is the moneymaker, if you're on these career calls, talking leaders, and they tell you, and you'll find there's a lot of themes that seem to run through different niches, right? And if you find that there are certain themes that your prospects tend to talk about, yet when you look at the competitive landscape, you don't see any solutions, that could be a big gap that you can then fill, but you won't know unless you do the competitive research. That is really, really important, right? So again, look at what they do really well. Are they communicating well? Is the message unique? Does it grab you by the you-know-whats? What about the offer? Does it solve any unique pains, right? Are there pains that they're not solving, that they're not talking about? Again, you need to look at it with very clear eyes, right? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? And it's not easy. This will create a situation where you have to basically look in the mirror and do really a radical self-inventory on what you offer. You may come out of this thinking, oh shit, I thought I was at least above average. Turns out I suck. Okay, that's fine, right? Get upset, get over it, and let's work on making you better, right? But you'll never get there without being honest with yourself. And that takes a competitive analysis or a proper competitor analysis to really figure that out for yourself. If you can do that for yourself, you'll go a long ways towards when you are starting to create your offer and your messaging. You'll know exactly what you're competing against. Hopefully you have a good idea of what your prospects want, and you may not get it right the first time. You may have to go try it and then retool and iterate again. Try it, get feedback, retool, and iterate again. And the process of iteration is how you create magic. But without an understanding of what your competitors' messages are and their offers are, you'll never, ever get there. And again, one last point, it is important that you do this every few months, maybe every 6 months. A year is probably the max I would do. But you want to do this consistently, create a file for every competitor and have it there and make sure you update that frequently. Okay, so with that said, that gives you hopefully a good idea of how to do a proper competitive analysis. On day 4, we're going to start diving more into the act of offer creation and what it means to create a premium offer out of a commodity product. All right, and with that said, I will see you tomorrow. Peace.
Say what again? Say